Before this episode of Revenge of the Sequel, the podcast about sequels, we want to talk to you about Revenge of the Sequel, the website about sequels. Did you guys know we have a website?
Yeah, I guess now that you told me.
Well,
actually, I'll visit it right now.
The joke's on you. It just launched, so
oh man,
it would have been hard for you to have gotten on it before.
Yeah, because I don't know how to navigate the internet sometimes.
Well, let me tell you something about internet. It's free. It's fast.
The internet's not free.
Well,
someone pays for it. Yeah, you can't use that truck stop argument now. Just getting free Wi-Fi at
free Wi-Fi at the truck stop, free Wi-Fi at the library. I'm pretty sure Andrew's personal Wi-Fi doesn't have a password.
Yeah,
give us your address.
I carry at least 10 hotspots on me at one moment.
He's a hot spot.
Yeah.
So if you're close to Andrew, hop on that hotspot.
Yeah.
And go to revengeofthesequel.com and look at the reviews of the movies that we talk about on the podcast.
If you know how to write, if you want to write for reviews, and if you have
Yeah.
interest in
If
film.
you ever learned how to write, let us know.
No, I mean, yeah, if you like movies and just want to write about films, like, go ahead
If you
and email
happen
us.
to
Let's
like
email
movies
real
and
quick.
know how to write,
Yeah, email us at info@delphinpod.com, info@delphinpod.com, and you may see your work on our website.
yeah, and I'm not sure if we can pay you.
But their story didn't end there.
How could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history of...
This time, it's personal.
Spider blood, radioactive spider. No, not
If
that
you
one?
like,
We're not doing that one?
If you like inner city high schools, Iron Men, spiders, hot ants, Karen computer voices, academic decathlons, and Spider-Man in general, you'll enjoy this week's episode on Spider-Man: Homecoming. Here's the trailer.
If you like high schoolers,
Finally, here we go.
Good evening, Peter. Whoa! You have 576 possible web shooter combinations.
That is awesome. I can keep that suit?
Yeah, doesn't fit me.
So when's our next retreat?
What, next mission? We'll call you. All right?
That's not a hug. I'm just grabbing the dough for you. We're not there yet. All right, kid. Good luck out there.
Hey, Peter. You coming tonight? I can tonight. I got the Stark internship. What's up, guys? Mr. Stark, here's my report for tonight. I stopped the Grand Theft bicycle. Hey, could you do me a favor? Hold on to that. Is this anybody's bike? Oh, I helped this old lady, and she bought me a churro. So, that was nice. I just feel like I could be doing more. Wait a minute. You guys aren't the real Avengers. Hulk gives it away. New move I'm working on? Not bad. Oh, God, this feels so strange. These weapons are crazy dangerous.
Listen, Peter, there are people who handle this sort of thing. Can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
Let go of me! Let go of me!
Activating parachute.
The world's changing, boys. It's time we change, too.
This is my chance to prove myself.
We have a Spanish quiz.
You gotta get better at this part of the job.
I don't understand. I'm intimidated. Oh, hey.
My friends are up there. Hey, where are you going?
oh no.
What are you hiding, Peter? I'm just kidding. I don't care. Bye.
There's a ton of other subsystems in here, but they're all disabled by the training wheels protocol.
I'm sick of Mr. Stark treating me like a kid.
But you are a kid.
Yeah, a kid who can stop a bus with his bare hands.
You never saw that.
Does whatever a spider can.
Welcome
Spins a
to
web
Revenge of
in
the
his friend.
Sequel.
Yeah, just
It's
just like flies.
episode
Here
95.
comes the Spider-Man.
90
Episode 95. 5 more until we break off another of our first hundo. Our first
Hundo.
100.
Isn't it technically more than 100 though, because of the intro episodes we did way back in the day?
The Century. We have some lost episodes that some of you might see when we die.
Yeah. We're gonna play a
That's when
episode
the rights expire.
because that's what John wants at his funeral. Us talking about Speed 2.
Yeah, Spectre,
It'll just leak.
Yeah, it'll be leaked out there.
If it can happen to you, it can happen to anyone.
You hear that, Russia? Release those podcast episodes,
And-
Russia.
Get us more subscribers, Russia.
As you know, this is a politics podcast. My name. This is the podcast just about sequels. My name is Emmanuel.
Memo Andres.
I'm
Andrew.
And I'm John. Hey guys.
What?
It's been how long has it been since our last episode?
It's
A
only
week?
been a week.
A week and a half. A week, right?
Yeah, but it felt
like
longer.
Transformers. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because
It felt like 2 months for me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know why
I
either.
think probably because it was 2 months. For you.
No, I was there last week.
Well, we're back in business with a franchise that has been around for quite some time. We're talking, of course, about Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
It's funny that you say it that way because Spider-Man actually came out today, where him and Miles Morales cross over and stuff. I work at a comic book shop, obviously.
Oh
but
man, he's already a one leg up.
check out the logo. I'm here to represent you on the cameras.
It's talking to the cameras, guys.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
already-
pointing at cameras in the room.
He's already one leg up on us because he works at a comic book
There's
shop.
literally 20 cameras.
So
everywhere.
Spider-Man, this is not the first Spider-Man movie to have been made. I think this is the sixth Spider-Man movie, the third Spider-Man, and
the second reboot.
Second reboot.
And the first Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my gosh! 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about like the
eighth Spider-Man already, like the Doctor.
So let's talk about Spider-Man. First of all, did you guys like the first reiteration from Sam Raimi?
Reiterations.
Yeah,
you go first. Yeah.
definitely. And you know why? I recently rewatched them. I guess this past week, and it was kind of like a lead up. Like I was kind of watching all the Spider-Man, but as a big Superman fan, you can see where he draws a lot of his inspiration from the old
Dick
Chris.
Donners,
Yeah. He just wanted to say Dick. His name's Richard Donner. I'm just kidding.
John, you can just say Dick.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Why are you so obsessed with this? No, but anyway, and you could see he drew a lot of inspiration from Richard Donner's original Superman. And that's the way it definitely feels now, having watched this one.
It's like a love story at its core. Like,
it's a crazy, like, modern interpretation of what it is. And basically, it kind of tells you on how kids kind of changed throughout the generations. Because to me, even though Tobey Maguire was built like a 50-year-old in a high school, he was still, I think, a true interpretation on what a high school student was at the time.
Yeah.
You know, like that's to me what I would picture a high school, like the average high school student looks like.
Peter Parker, the character, is a nerd. Like,
right,
you know,
sure,
supposed to be like.
And that was back then when like jocks were still a thing, or like, but now jocks are even
You don't
smart.
even
So
know,
like,
yeah.
they're the nerds. You
Plus,
know,
bullying isn't cool anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally. No, you're right. And
But these three Spider-Man, you have Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and now you have Tom Holland. But the people who are behind the camera,
But the people who were, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So you've got Sam Raimi, who was the first to bring Spider-Man to the big screen.
Alfred Hitchcock, right?
Yeah. So Sam Raimi, and then you have Mark Webb, and now who's the director of this one?
The guy who directed Clown.
John Watts.
John Watts. And so these guys,
It was going to go before that. Spider-Man, obviously, is. I mean, you know this, Andrew, is Marvel's flagship hero.
Yeah,
he
had
a
the
movie,
poster boy.
He had a
Stanley's
movie,
favorite.
Yeah,
Of
Stanley's
course.
favorite hero, and then you had a movie made, about to be made. His rights were optioned like very early on. I think James Cameron was going to work on a movie because it's his favorite superhero. James Cameron was going to work on a movie back in the late 80s and early 90s, which was going to be pretty crazy. Like, they had, it involved like,
CGI,
It
definitely.
involved like it's just it was very adult.
Terminators.
Spider-Man had sex with Mary Jane on top of the World Trade Center, and
yes.
and all
That
this
had
other
probably
stuff, like
happened in all other
the
interpretations
villain was
as well.
Electro, I think, and it was just like it was going to be so crazy and out of this world.
Jamie
And then,
Foxx
you know,
attached.
Sam Raimi got the rights to it and then made the other movies.
And it's so crazy to look at those directors and then like to think one of them came off of The Evil Dead and kind of spun into this, and then the other one came off of 500 Days of Summer and spun into his, and then this one with coming off of
bunch
Clown,
of independent film,
exactly.
Cop Car, that funny movie.
Yeah.
So I would say these are all like big, almost like auteur works, because Sam Raimi's movies have that feel of a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah, campy, but still very
little
kind of
campy, and it has those crazy shots that he likes, like
the harsh zoom-ins, like
you know,
super fast.
the harsh zoom-ins, but he also created a camera. This is insane, or not him,
for the
but
NFL.
just for Spider-Man.
Swinging,
the Spidey cam and the swinging cam that goes through, and it's an insane, cool shot of it swinging through the buildings. And then you're right, it's in every sporting event now. I wonder if Sam Raimi gets a check every time.
He should, man. He's like George
Sam Raimi, or
Romero.
is it Bill Pope that gets the check?
The cinematographer. I don't know.
Yeah, Bill Pope.
The jury. Welcome back to our podcast, royalties.
But Sam Raimi was doing shots like that even in like indie
Evil
movies.
Dead.
Yeah, exactly. Where
It's going through the whole forest.
These
and
like
up.
unorthodox shots that ended up being classics now.
Yeah,
then
Danny
you recognize
Elfman.
them.
Yeah. So and then Mark Webb has his kind of movie that is just makes you want to squirm in your seat. How teenage angsty
the
it is.
first one reminded me of like the indie Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
And it sucked because it went so downhill.
Too much of
after,
that. Yeah.
And then no one talks about Spider-Man 3 also. But Spider-Man 3 was
trying to do
though.
Like I do like the Mark Webb movies. I don't know about Mark Webb movies. There you go. I like some elements of the second one, like Gwen Stacy's death and like stuff like that.
Gwen Stacy. That's it.
Gwen Stacy, yeah, like Emma Stone, like plays her heart out. She acts her heart out, and then like Andrew Garfield is actually a really good Spider-Man. He's not a really good Peter Parker, but he's a really good Spider-Man.
Sally Field.
That first Amazing Spider-Man movie is a great high school movie. Like it's not as good as the high school elements in
Homecoming.
In Homecoming, only because I guess it's a different era and generation. I guess sort of.
True.
But, that movie is like really well done, and then some elements of Amazing Spider-Man 2 is really well done. So even the Mark Webb movies have like this really cool feel to them. And then now you have like a third version, which was this Spider-Man was introduced in Captain America: Civil War last or was it last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah,
I think it was last year.
Who knows?
Already created continuity errors in the first 5 minutes. Of
this movie. Yeah, so like, if you want to get into it, or what are you gonna ask next?
No, that's. I mean, we're gonna wrap up on talking about Spider-Man as a whole and go into our review. But Spider-Man has always been one of those box office successes. Even though The Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do well with critics, it still made a ton of money. It's a very
but it was it was universally bashed.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like Spider-Man's always been that character, or that when you say the word superhero, you say Batman, you say Superman, and then the next one's in line is Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's just oh man. So and then the other thing that we'll talk about a little bit later on, but just touch briefly on now, is something that's really interesting about this iteration of Spider-Man is he is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's obviously going to be a huge part of everything.
Ghost Rider exists. A
lot of things,
you got,
right?
Like Eagle, the Living Planet on the other side.
Lockjaw.
You have Daredevil patrolling the streets of New York.
Lockjaw.
So
Yeah,
partially,
Lockjaw
Kevin
Feige.
Feige,
Feige.
Fabergé egg is in charge of the way that this new series of Spider-Man movies are going to roll out. But let's get to our spoiler-free review of Spider-Man.
Spoiler-free?
Spoiler-free, and then we'll go into our
out.
spoiler field. But what were your first impressions? What did you guys think about Spider-Man Homecoming?
So initially, I had very low hopes because I have never been really a Spider-Man fan. I was a fan when I saw as a kid growing up because of his 90s basically his cartoon.
Yeah.
And that was a big part, watching that and the X-Men, and then they crossed over and I geeked out and stuff. But ever since then, I kind of really fell off the Spider-Man bandwagon.
You like the
or
Raimi
train.
movies, didn't you?
Yeah, and Raimi because of, it's just like, I don't know, like Raimi's one of the directors that I actively follow, like Edgar Wright and stuff. And so basically, after that, spiel and the mishap with Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was like, how much different can you get from these movies?
We've seen a lot of the same things over and over again.
And again, low hopes, but I went in and it was actually, it surprised me, and it did go away that I didn't think it was gonna go, and the massive cast brings a lot to it.
Yeah.
Everything from Martin Starr to Michael Keaton and Marisa Tomei and Tom Holland and Jon Favreau
and a lot of new faces that you're like, man, these people should be in
coming.
more
like
more movies. Yeah,
Zendaya and that other love interest, I forgot her name. What was her name?
Liz Allen. But
Marisa Tomei?
No, yeah, exactly, for real.
Someone needs to hire Marisa Tomei. She needs to be in a movie.
Yeah, for real. And but yeah, it surprised me in a lot of ways, and it actually gives me hope for the character going forward. It kind of, I think it's gonna foreshadow for sure, and we'll get into it in a little bit on what it means for his character. But it
was good.
Yeah, it's really good.
John, what did you think of this movie?
I thought it was pretty cool. As a Marvel movie, it's pretty awesome, and it's actually it's probably the most lighthearted movie in the Marvel universe right now. As far as Spider-Man flicks, if we're comparing it, if we're doing a spoiler-free ranking of the Spider-Man movies, I'd still put it below the Raimi flicks.
Not all of them,
After
though,
the
right?
third one? He's
No, it's
Can we agree on? Okay, so 1, 2, 3. You're the best Spider-Man movie. Ready?
2.
1, 2, 3. Okay,
bad,
I agree. What do you think?
Spider-Man 1.
Oh, whoa,
bad.
hey, but Doc Ock, bro.
Yeah.
Doc Ock, bro.
No, it's just because the only reason I don't forgive Spider-Man 1 is I do love the performance of Goblin. I don't like his
Willem
costume.
Dafoe.
His costume is really weird.
There's a lot
So
of
it's
plot
just like,
points in that movie that are just like a little bit too
It's
campy
like-
for
I
me.
love it.
Spider-Man 1
Superman.
is like the Evil
Yeah.
Dead 1 or Mad Max 1. Spider-Man 2 is the Road Warrior. It's Evil Dead 2. It's like everything that you could have done right in the first one times 50.
Growing up, I watched that one so much, and it was so negative that I was like, I hate this movie. Like, everything goes to shit for him until, like, the last 5 minutes.
seconds, yeah.
And you're like, oh, man, that's cool, but, like, everything else is still shit,
But Homecoming.
Homecoming still be better than obviously Spider-Man 3 and then
And
the
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Then the Amazing Spider-Man films, even a little bit above the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. It's not a bad flick. I just wish that it was a little bit more exciting. I felt kind of like a little I was wanted more afterwards, but like not in a good way. Like I kind of wanted like
He wanted more in that bad way.
as in like
Daddy.
I was like kind of like I had that feeling like that's it. Like all the action scenes we kind of saw in the trailers and stuff, and didn't really get that far. But whatever, we'll talk specifics here in a bit. What were your first impressions?
I think so when I looked at the bad reviews of the other films, I felt like they had issues with like the villains so it's always weird when in these Spider-Man movies, because you're right, he is kind of the Superman of Marvel.
For sure.
To have the balance between the Peter Parker side and the Spider-Man villain backstory
Sam
side.
Raimi even does the Superman shot when he's going to save
Takes
Mary
off
Jane.
his shirt, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think this movie does well to get that balance pretty spot on. I will say the biggest shadow overhanging this whole movie is
Jon Favreau. Is that a fat joke?
No. The biggest shadow, the Stark Tower. No, it's I think the fact that it's basically like a comma in the Avengers universe. There's so much of that is interweaved throughout that. I don't know, man. Like it's not bad. I'll say I love this movie so much. I had a really great, diverse cast. Even the story was great. I mean, without spoiling anything, the villain ended up being pretty cool and surprising twist. But you couldn't help think that like there is either more for Spider-Man that we're just waiting for, or it's like it's this weird thing when you're sitting in the audience and you're watching Spider-Man and you're looking for clues for other things, or you're seeing props from other movies
or just like hints too, because you see the Scorpion and like a character like that.
And I think it's not really a fault of this film. Maybe it's just the fault of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where Iron Man is the god and everything happens under his supervision, and all the bad guys are just basically like branches from other Avengers movie villains, you
Yeah,
know,
I
who
just
find technology, who find things.
But that too, he says like, this villain is a little below our pay grade. Like, we don't deal with street level villains.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because like, how can movies like Doctor Strange and like Ant-Man do so well and stand on their own with like not very many references to the main, I guess, Avengers or Marvel Cinematic Universe? I think it was basically them trying to milk the crap out of telling you that, obviously when you heard the title Homecoming, you're like, oh, Spider-Man's come home to Marvel, and I think there's a lot of metaphors of that. Even when they started, the movie, you usually get the Marvel Studios logo, and you get the Spider-Man theme that runs on,
underneath.
So I think it was a lot of that, of like, hey, let's milk the crap out of it and let's remind everybody where he belongs. You know.
Well, I didn't mind that as much because as a movie as a whole, it works well. Because even if you had not seen any Iron Man or Avengers films, you would have gotten
seen any Spider-Man.
movies at all. You would have gotten that Stark is like just this powerful guy who's helping him along, and that's one of the strengths.
It's kind of creepy. When you think about it.
Yeah, that weird father-son dynamic.
Yeah, he's like trying to. He's like, let me be your uncle.
Yeah, which is cool because I mean, Stark never had a father that was what he wanted.
Another dynamic to it.
Yeah, but so it is different, and I'll say that like it's a very Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man movie. But what saves it is just, I think, the cast. I think they get a lot of the relationship stuff that you would think of in a high school movie. And it's pretty funny. Like it's a pretty fun movie.
John Hughesian.
Yeah, and you talked about the animated TV show you watched. Like there's a lot of. You could see a lot of the quotes that he says in this movie as
That's
like
racist,
bubbles.
I was talking about it.
Oh no,
you're like, sorry. You people. Like the
no,
same.
you talked about the TV show,
No,
right?
That was me.
It was him, actually.
What?
It was me.
Oh man,
anyway,
racist.
They didn't even know
racist.
They didn't even know who I was pointing at until you said that.
Until we called you out on your racism.
But yeah. So I
Latinos.
I imagined all of his little quiffs, all of the things he was saying, all of his little jokes.
Quiffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quips. Sorry, quips.
Yeah.
All of his queefs. I imagined all of that as like a bubble, as like a text bubble in a comic book, and I think that's what I remember when I think of Spider-Man is him having fun always.
Yeah.
Like while he's fighting.
While he's fighting crime.
Word vomit. Yeah.
For sure. Crazy. All right.
But yeah, so we're gonna turn the cameras off. We're gonna go into the spoiler zone. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and then come back to this.
Stop getting mad at us for talking about spoilers.
Yeah, 22:23.
Like, here we go.
So,
like, we gave you a specific time, too, 22:23 in this podcast.
And
you better.
Here we go. John, spoil the whole movie. What did you think of this movie?
When Spider-Man straight up fights Thanos, it's fucking crazy. Fucking puts it in his ace.
Zendaya, like, actually being revealed as initials with Mary J, like, or the MJ, not Mary Jane.
Yeah, I was like,
MJ.
those are initials.
Those are initials. It's an actual name.
And you see all this alcohol he's consuming? I'm just kidding. You see it on the cameras. Oh, you shut him down. But yeah, you're right. That MJ thing was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's as big as spoilers as you can get, though.
Yeah, so we just decided to start off with that. Yeah. So if you didn't stop at 20, what was it, 21, 23?
22, 33.
23, 30. Oh, fuck, I fucked it up.
So there's...
Yeah, man.
I burped.
Nice, it's all right.
Well,
natural.
Just so you guys know, things are now the cameras are off. We're getting disgusting. We're taking our pants off. We're burping.
I just took a fat dump in my pants.
Yeah,
I didn't even take off my pants.
We're pooping into each other's mouths and peeing into each other's ears. It's disgusting.
Very human centipede, but voluntarily.
But yeah, so Spider-Man: Homecoming. From the title, people thought this was a very Howard Hughesy rendition of the movie.
John Hughes.
Howard Hughes is another guy.
He's an inventor.
Yeah. So everyone thought this was going to be a Hughesy kind of movie, and it is kind of. There's even a Spider-Man in the Suburbs is one of those set pieces that I thought was really cool and unique to this Spider-Man movie.
And it's very homage to Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
Really, John? Oh, really? You fucking bitch.
Because he's running through people's backyards. He's interrupting people in their houses.
Too, at one point, too. He's like, please don't get up. Like, when he was swinging across.
And wait a minute. And also, isn't that movie playing in the TV?
Yeah, that's what I said. So I was like, oh, really?
too on the nose sometimes. But I think the another complaint that I saw other people have about this movie, and I want to know what you guys think about it, is the fact that he stays in Queens the entire movie. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they said they thought
does not stay in Queens. He goes to another fucking
that's true,
state.
state and city, but in New York, in the
he goes to Washington.
Someone was telling me they were expecting it to end with him like swinging through New York and
like
ending at the Empire State.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a huge problem with it because
we've seen that a while.
If this is the MCU, isn't there Daredevil? Isn't there
exactly
a lot of superheroes in New York?
Yeah.
Like in the Bronx.
What do you have to
I had
say
no
about it?
problem because Spider-Man has no fucking bounds.
That's true.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Is
he
it-
can go anywhere if he wants to.
I kind of had a problem with it, but I don't know if it was like that big. Like, you know, I didn't. This is one of the things that I didn't really notice until like after I watched the movie. We've seen him kind of like web sling all over through New York, like in the
Before,
previous films. So.
But that's what I liked about this movie. Again, like I just thought it was crazy that how different they could be with the Spider-Man movie, which is
they're
here-
really changing up the lore, though.
Yeah,
like, really though.
Are they?
Yeah, they
He's
kind of
still
are.
not fully developed. He can still move to New York or whatever, you know.
We
in,
can talk
like,
about the
suburb
suit
or-
later. God.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah, I mean, even to the point where like they always answered. We always
Flash
had
Thompson's
these,
not a bully. Like
yeah, well, he's a rival, but I mean, you could still be a bully and a rival. But he was a bully, calling him Penis Parker. That's pretty bullyish.
It's one of the worst jokes in this movie, by the way.
Yeah, you're right. But that was funny that he was DJing. I was like, that's fucking hilarious that he's DJing.
Especially because it sounds
No,
like a DJ Khaled one. He's like DJ Flash. After
Yeah.
that. But Flash Thompson, yeah, that's like going back to the bigger point. It's like it's you kind of these characters are very changed up to make them seem different from the original movies.
Well,
so let's talk. So you guys are Spider-Man fans, or you know of Spider-Man.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot in this film that has been adapted for like the audience, or for the vision of this film.
For this one,
You talked about MJ already, and Flash, and even Vulture is different. Like it's a lot of
definitely. Yeah, it's like
everything in
super
this
modern.
film
he's
is
not badass. He's not that badass in the comics.
Yeah, it was.
He's more of
everything's-
like geezer, like Sonny, get off
yeah,
my grass.
man, and he has like his wings of feathers and stuff.
And that's what I think is weird about Marvel movies, and I think I've said it before, where like Marvel takes liberties at changing things, and people have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But as soon as DC does
Yeah.
it, everybody fucking flips. You know,
Yeah.
everybody throws like there's this major shitstorm or rep that DC
Well,
has to kind of.
Do you
put
think
up with,
this is
but-
why they have like a story room where these people are writing all of the scripts for the next billion Marvel movies? Is because everything has to make sense and fit. So if we have a Vulture, the technology behind it has to make sense. It can't be like another alien or some other thing.
A guy in a Vulture suit.
Yeah, or some guy in a suit. Like it's cool that it all makes sense. Something else that I wanted to ask you guys is this movie. No, wait, I forgot what I was going to ask you guys. Shit.
All
It was a really big, important, cool conversation starting question.
We'll believe you. I doubt it though. I'm just kidding. No, well, it'll come.
If it comes back to you, please bring it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
But I just can't point out at how different it was. Like again, we have all these questions watching Spider-Man growing up and stuff, and when you see him swinging over the ocean like in a cartoon, and you think like, how does he do that? And in this scene, in this movie, they actually kind of do address questions like that you have where he shoots his web and there's literally nothing to grab onto, so there he is running, and that's what triggers the Ferris Bueller part. And you even see him drive a fucking car in this thing because
And he doesn't know how to drive.
yeah, exactly. So I just think it's crazy on how different they actually got compared to the other Spider-Man movies.
It's true. I wanted to bring this up point only because like one of my main gripes of the movie is that there wasn't enough emotional punches like compared to other films.
Yeah, and a lot of that I think is because it's missing. Because that's what I was saying. Like one of the biggest parts of introducing Spider-Man is the fact that
because he gets his motivation from Uncle Ben's death.
Yeah, and what is that thing, right? That quote that's now overquoted is with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
But so it is weird that this movie, which I didn't mind at all because we've seen the origin before.
Fine, but until after you until you guys didn't feel anything like something was missing.
Yeah.
At
Oh
the
yeah,
very end?
I
Like,
think
you're
I
just
didn't
kinda
mind
like,
it,
wait,
but it would have been better if there was something
more of a hint
else.
to it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if
I'm
it doesn't
sure-
have to be Uncle Ben, but what's the other than just wanting to be an Avenger?
Well, and I'm sure in the next one
Yeah, that's
it
true.
might point something like that out where like, hey, now we can do Uncle Ben. Now that we've gotten past the first one
Yeah.
and did do an origin story, in the second one they'll say that basically this whole Avengers thing is to distract from that. Like, if he's not an Avenger, if he's not Spider-Man, then he has to sit and deal with that, you know?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool, too.
So,
I guess so. I
yeah.
guess, yeah.
But again, it's just trying to be different than the other ones, which is we're not going to show you Uncle Ben. We're not going to show you how he got bit. You know this stuff already.
I get that, too, but
You
I
know?
just felt like... Because they did give a hint that Uncle Ben was dead.
Because
Like
if they brought in Harry Osborn again, I was about to flip my
yeah,
shit.
I agree. Like, you know, I understand all that stuff. Like, why would you show Uncle Ben getting clapped for, like, you know, the third time?
Yeah.
And shit?
And
Why
then
did
you
it
know
say
they'd have
clap?
to. No, I don't
Like
know.
you hood rat. Okay.
Anyway,
when they get got, black.
I was
I'll
just
be coming
about
for
to
you.
say that. Uncle Ben, get gotten.
Yeah,
Get
Uncle
gotten
Ben
good.
gun got get
Grits.
But I'm not saying, like, you do that, but, like, have more than one hint, though, because, like, you know, that is as much as, like, you know, Superman is, like, you know, being inspired off of, like, you know, the values of Martha Kent and Pa Kent, Martha and Jonathan Kent.
You say Spider-Man?
No, it's Superman.
Okay.
Like, that's how
like,
much
what?
Spider-Man, like, you know, a part of the character is.
It's
like,
a
you know,
huge part of their development or
it's
the beginning.
actual, and
What if
it's also hinted at in Civil War, which is the movie before this movie. Like, you know, this is the sequel to Civil War, and they hint, like, you know, he tells Tony Stark, he's like, you know, if you don't do anything, you have these gifts and you don't do anything, the bad things happen because of you, and so, like, that was cool, but, like, you know, we probably maybe should have
just
had
vague.
a line like that in this one.
I get that frustration because and it's I didn't mind if it wasn't Uncle Ben. I just felt like there needed to be something
a little bit with stakes, like a little bit
he's
emotional
clinging
stakes.
on to the next father figure that he finds.
Yeah.
Especially in this new world that he's in of superpowers.
I'm just saying, like, not just that. I'm just saying, like, there
trying
wasn't
to get
any
daddy's approval.
Uncle Ben would have been the easiest emotional thing to put in there.
So
like,
you
with
wanted
an
them to do it
emotional gut
again?
punch. No, but I'm saying, but, like, there was no emotional stakes when it came to even, like, I didn't feel anything when him and what's his name, Liz, at the very end broke up.
There was a girl.
I felt
He's
something.
like, what was his name?
I felt
kudos
something like
to John for not seeing gender.
The strongest emotional moment to me was either, like, you know, the scene where the Vulture bitches out Peter in the back of the car.
That was
which is,
terrifying,
like,
which was
awesome.
awesome.
And that's awesome. Like, that's, like, you know, that's
was great.
that's
Michael
obviously
Keaton does an awesome job. That's
yeah,
one of my favorite
That's
scenes.
my point. Like, you know, it hits the feels, but, like, those are the only two the only two
rubble.
scenes that, like, and the rubble scene.
The rubble, I felt
Only
so
two
bad for
scenes
him. I was
that
like, he's
gave me
gonna
the
die.
feels. Only two scenes that gave me the feels, and, like, you know, every other, even the emotion, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had Gwen Stacy dying and shit, and so it's just, like,
horrible.
kinda crazy.
It's so sad to watch Emma Stone die.
So
in,
just
in
like
La
this
La
one,
Land.
This one should have
on
could've
stage
done with a
after
little bit
she
more.
was announced to not have won
because
Best
even
Picture.
I don't know, just like, you know, he could have done with a little bit more of an emotional gut punch.
Yeah, and I think there's an issue with I think what they looked at was the negative responses from whatever Spider-Man movies didn't work, and they decided to cut a lot of fat and make it simple, which worked better because there's less risk. You're not risking. Remember from Amazing Spider-Man 2 where they decided to make his parents
part of the origin, like, it's just,
yeah,
like, so
part of
crazy,
like
yeah.
some
That was
insane
horrible.
organization.
It was like some sort of James Bond shit going on.
like the opposite of simple, right? Like
We're gonna
and so
kill
this,
you in minute. It was like Bane coming in and hijacking that plane.
yeah,
Crashing this
Bane.
plane.
So I think what you're saying is maybe it's too simple. Like they just decided this is the arc and that's it, and these are the storylines and that's it. And you're kind of and you're relying on future stakes because there's the Avengers and there's stuff brewing. And you'll just table that for later.
Well,
that
and
want for something
they
else.
They tried to do one of the bigger falling actions of like Tony getting mad at him and taking away the suit.
Yeah,
that type of emotional punch a little bit. But yeah, I could see how it is. But
Sort of.
again,
my
I'm
gripes
just
with
glad.
that scene was just totally just weirded out at the fact that Spider-Man's getting lectured down.
Yeah.
Like it's just like
why wouldn't he's a kid?
I mean,
But like he has to
yeah.
be because he's like he has to be bigger than these people or whatever, especially being able to do the things that he can do.
And I think there's a very toned down like focus or theme in this film because I think a lot of it is just because he's focused on his being a teenager. Like he's a teenager and he wants more, which is a lot of people can relate with when you're a teenager.
He's having fun as being the superhero.
And I think it's just different for us to see all of this happen in like just a couple months rather than other Spider-Man movies where we see him graduate, smash cut to him already at an internship, or he's working for the Bugle.
Yeah, he's already in an apartment.
So maybe there's just so much more that we know is going to happen that we're like, oh man, we're just going to go to Homecoming, and that's the end. That's the finale. Is Homecoming.
That's what I love about the scale of this one is it does feel like he could be part of the Defenders, where it's like so small time where they're just taking out this
staying in Queens,
this local dude like busting them down for dealing guns. Basically.
And I don't want people to think this is a small scale movie. He goes to the fucking Washington Monument during a academic decathlon. So it does have a lot of epic, grand, like he has to sew that ferry together. So, but what I think is happening, and I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory. I've heard this a lot online. Is that Spider-Man is being primed
to be the replacement for Iron Man. Correct.
Right?
And that was my theory too, because they're even giving him the suit and it does everything that Iron Man does.
It has a Jarvis.
And this guy's primed up to be the next, he's signed up to, he could be the next 10 years of Marvel. He could be the next 20 if he wants.
And the fact that this movie's so small lends to that theory because
it's a build-up.
Yeah, like, and it's if it's going to be Tom Holland for like 50 years, then they have to start like from point -A.
Yeah, sure.
Before it gets to Z, because he may be like in his 30s or 40s when they end it. So I think that may be more than a theory based on how kind of small this movie was.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because like Spider-Man is the poster child for Marvel. Like Iron Man only got popular because of the movies.
Everything is right for what we're talking about to happen. And but it's just crazy to start at such a small scale and then know that so much bigger is coming.
Yeah,
and again, like you said, like it's no short of spectacle, and it does give you the bumps and in the ride and all that. So it's just crazy to think that there's so much growth to be done. Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the cast of this movie. Obviously, Tom Holland. What do you guys think his turn as Spider-Man is like? Did you guys like him?
Perfect. Yeah, he even does the thing where like he pulls the mask up and eats, and I'm like, man, that is so Spider-Man. Like I see so many panels working at a comic book shop with him with this New York slice of pizza, scarfing one down, or it was nice that it was a churro, and we got a lot of Spanish in this movie.
It's also cool. Super like it's super genuine. I think the way he acts, because there a lot of times in a lot of Spider-Man movies, Peter Parker is like this kind of shy dude, and then when he puts on the suit, he's like cracking jokes. And Tom Holland kind of fits the two together in a way. He's still super geeky, but he's making those jokes about the Death Star. He's making a lot of nerdy jokes that aren't that different when he puts the mask on. So you think he's genuinely this guy. He doesn't turn into something.
He's already
when
there.
He puts the mask.
Like whenever he puts the mask on, it's just like no holds barred. Like it's already his personality.
Well, and as everybody would, you put a mask on and you're 10 times more comfortable anywhere.
I'm wearing a mask right now.
Yeah,
exactly. I think like what Delphin was talking about is like you can genuinely believe that comes from like Tom Holland's character, I guess, or like Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker is very similar to the Spider-Man. Like the other Peter Parkers and Spider-Man were very different from each other.
Yeah, they were. I think of like Andrew Garfield and
super
he did good. He did a great turn, but like anytime he was Peter Parker, it was this super
very awkward,
very
awkward stuff. Yeah.
And what's crazy is that now thinking about it, it was funny because I remember not John, but my older brother as a senior, and I kind of compare the old Spider-Man to that, like in high school, like the jocks, like I'm gonna break your teeth in,
Yeah.
And then Amazing Spider-Man's kind of like our high school, which is like you had like the indie kind of person and like the guy who's
hipster type of
exactly the hipster type of thing that gets the girl and all that. And then now you have this Spider-Man that reflects all these people,
almost like
making
straight up millennial.
Like they're obsessed with nostalgia that they weren't alive for. Grabbing the most expensive Lego set, ever in existence, where it's like a retro one that came out back in the 70s, but somehow they still got it. Because,
and it's odd because and it's not a stereotypical high school either. It's like I think it's a academy for really smart people.
Yeah.
So you don't have a classic bully. You have you got a nerdy bully
you have a nerdy rival.
And that reflects the times now where like the bully back then used to be stereotypical
like
dumb,
meet me in the restroom and I'll whip your ass.
Neanderthal type of like
It even starts with like him recording a lot of
and that's what I think sets you up for
beginning.
the cast for sure. Is that you get Jon Favreau, who's obviously directing The Lion King and all that, and he still finds a way. I mean, he started the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so why wouldn't he find a way to get back into these movies? But and then technically, you can say that Captain America, Black Widow, Paul Rudd,
all of them were in this movie.
Yeah, because they're at the beginning.
Welcome back to our podcast, Royalties again.
Exactly.
More royalties, guys.
That's funny, but yeah, and it starts off with that little indie feel, like of everybody likes to go Facebook Live, so it kind of reminds you, like, man, this kid is super like
footage.
Modern.
Blair Witch.
It does mess up the continuity though there,
just a
little bit, which is unfortunate.
Don't ruin it for people, God, guys.
Yeah, it's just a movie.
Oh, John Watts, you ruined that for people.
Yeah,
just saying.
I also liked. We talked about the bully, but I also liked his best friend, played by Jacob Batalon. He hasn't been in a lot of movies, so it's great that he's getting a turn.
Fresh off the boat.
He made a lot of jokes as being the guy in the chair.
Yeah.
And being like
that was
the
very sexist
henchman.
of him.
Yeah,
he's
one of the
Batgirl
few
is
people
the girl
who
in the chair.
knows Spider-Man's identity. So we'll see where that goes later on. Zendaya obviously is
Michelle Jones.
Yeah,
Michelle
MJ.
Jones. Yeah, MJ.
And she's a very different MJ than any other movie.
Yeah,
she's
first of all, she's not Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah,
she's
and I
Michelle
like how
Jones.
Kevin what's his name? Feige. He was
Feige.
very clear by saying like it might be just a coincidence.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah,
there could be another MJ out there, which is kind of weird though. I have a weird.
He's just attracted
about
by
that.
MJ's
Like, if you're gonna be
marijuana.
if you're gonna do like the wink MJ stuff, why don't you just do the actual MJ? Like that's what my point is.
Remember
Betty Brant. Betty Brant in this movie is played by an actress who was in The Nice Guys. I'm trying to remember her name.
Oh man, The Nice Guys is a good movie.
She plays the daughter. Fuck, what's her name?
You don't know. It's all right. We'll keep going.
Anyway, but she plays. Hold on.
I see. It's Anjori Rice.
Yeah. There you go. Anjori Rice plays Betty Brant, and Betty Brant is like looks like Gwen Stacy. She's not like the image of Betty Brant at all. Like she has.
Because they're gonna make Gwen
blonde.
Stacy something different.
Yeah,
Gwen
like,
could be a
like,
dude.
Let's talk about how diverse his cast is. It is not what we've seen in other Spider-Man movies, or really rarely in a bunch of movies. Like it's not. A stereotypical movie at all. And I think it's great. It is. You're right. A reflection of the modern audience now.
Sure.
Like how people, if movies now are how people identify themselves with a character, it's easier for a lot of people to identify with these characters.
True.
I think it's really cool. We also have Marisa Tomei as May Parker, Aunt May.
Yeah, see, even that, like the like reflection of the times where it's like the women are getting older, but they're looking so much younger.
Well, it's not that. It's just like it's about like if when people have an aunt now, like
50s are the new
cool
30s.
Aunt, like you have that. Your aunt's not a grandmother; it's like a big sister.
Yeah,
I like how they try to make her look old with those big glasses, but it just helped. Hey, baby.
Bokeem Woodbine and Logan Marshall Green play both Shockers.
Yeah.
Two in the pink.
And while we're talking about while we're talking about the Shocker, while we're talking about bad guys,
the Rocker and
Michael
the
Keaton
Spocker.
Plays Vulture.
Yeah.
And
in Tombs.
It's crazy because he's also played Birdman.
He also
really
played
funny,
the
yeah,
Batman. He's playing lots of
That's
winged
true.
creatures.
You think he took this he technically is a Birdman in this movie. You think he took this movie just like he took this role as like a wink,
He won an Oscar for Birdman, didn't he?
Yes, he
almost did.
The Birdman,
Daniel
the movie.
Day.
And Eddie Redmayne.
Eddie Redmayne.
But the movie Birdman won for Best Picture. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So what do you guys think of Michael Keaton as a vulture?
I'm gonna go first. Okay, here we go. No,
here we go. I'm
kidding.
going first.
I like Michael Keaton. I don't know if I like the Vulture.
Okay, cool. Why not? What didn't you like about him?
I said I don't know if I liked it. I just felt like he probably never, which is cool. I guess this is something. I guess while I'm talking about it, is probably different. I don't feel like he actually ever had a villainous turn.
Yeah.
He never really turned villain.
I disagree. When he murdered the other villain,
when he talked to Peter in the car, is the most evil he's ever been.
He put out a gun in a high school.
He wasn't really evil.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of just threatening because he's like, it's my family.
It is odd because you do feel for him a lot more than you would, especially with that after credit scene that they show. Yeah. You're like, man, I'm kind of on this guy's side. There's just a little class warfare. He's like, why can only the haves have stuff? Why can't the have-nots have stuff?
I was okay with the modernization of the Vulture because he needed one desperately. Like I don't think this
So
villain.
you
was
would think
gonna,
John Malkovich in Spider-Man 4 would have
I think he
worked?
no, not with feathers. I think he would.
That
need,
would probably would have.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wouldn't work then. But anyway, I think there was a time for something like that to take off, and maybe that would be okay if it was in Sam Raimi's.
Yeah.
But for this one, like I think this villain was gonna die for sure, and
Yeah.
it's basically what they did with in Iron Man 2. As horrible as that movie is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man 2 served.
That bad.
It is pretty bad. It's served compared to all the other Marvel movies. It is pretty bad.
Thor 2 too?
Yeah. Even the Thor 2 actually, and Thor 2 sucked too. So
Anyway, go
so what they did with Whiplash was like a dying villain, and they combined him with another character called Crimson Dynamo.
Yeah.
And basically that's the way he exists today in the comic books to keep him relevant. And again, I think this character was almost out the door because of how non-modernized he was, and now he's gonna look like this in the comic.
He's one of
book.
like Spider-Man's oldest and like
and that's why I'm okay with this movie not being so formulaic. With like, it doesn't give you that gut punch, or it doesn't show you how this villain built his suit or whatever, and how it just kind of you
Smash
have,
cut too.
Yeah, you have to be there. I
Yeah.
guess like
And he's, like it's very simple. Like this, Adrian Toomes' character, the Vulture, like he's working for his family. Like that's the only reason he does illegal shit.
and he was doing it all legally, and then Stark came in and
control.
put a fork in his plan with damage control,
Yeah.
which makes sense because you want this shit on lockdown.
Yeah, and it's a clever way to keep Stark
and
connected to this. It's his technology, and in the end, they try to heist things from his personal
and it's
plane.
it's so crazy because it kind of plays into what's going on today in modern society with like the working class, where the working class is like, what? Like, you're taking it away from me. Like, all this stuff that I worked to build,
It is interesting because this is the first time we sort of see an issue with how rich Tony Stark is, because it's a very working man. 'Cause a lot of times it goes over our heads and it's heroes who are fighting each other.
Sure.
But this movie probably has a lot more human characters. Definitely a lot more. I mean, all of the high school is...
They don't want to
human
destroy
main
the world.
characters.
They just literally want to sell the weapons. that they're
Yeah,
making.
so it's sort of interesting, and I was like, man, this is a new thing. Like, I bet a lot of people resent
On
Tony
the movie
Stark
front,
and like are upset that he's ruining
Yeah,
New York,
and it's awesome. It kind of forces you to look up at these giants that are Iron Man and Captain America. And
okay, you're going into a DC movie now,
Or-
like they're gods or something.
Yeah, exactly. Gods among men.
But yeah, so I think there's a lot of cool themes that are explored, but and I think that the Vulture's reveal as the dad
of Liz,
Liz's dad,
That surprised me, and
it was a good.
We're all really pretty movie savvy, I would say.
I thought about it when I saw during the scene where he asks Liz out to homecoming. That's when I was like, oh man.
Well, and
because I remember specifically after her coming home from the memorial or the Washington Monument,
right?
Her mom hugging her, but her dad wasn't there, and everyone else's family was there. And I was like, where's her dad? And then I was like,
there were early rumors
he's
that
in trouble,
that he was going to be Zendaya's dad or MJ's dad. So I was like, man, I'm just waiting for this. So when they threw me like, nope, it's actually another character.
Yeah,
I actually did freak a little bit.
Liz Allen is a Spider-Man. I feel like has a lot of girl like Superman. Because Spider-Man, I don't know.
It's
which
high
is kinda weird.
school.
Well, he has a lot of girl like supporting characters, like almost like Archie and shit. And so Liz Allen is a girlfriend type of character, like, other than Gwen Stacy, but Brandon.
Spider-Man gets around, baby.
So Liz Allen is a character in the comics, and
he shoots his webs.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
made her Liz Allen Toombs, the daughter of the Vulture, which is pretty cool.
And it's really neat.
And it can fit too, because like most people aren't probably familiar with the character of Liz Allen.
You talked about that scene with the gun. I like the scene right before when they're driving.
Yeah.
And he starts to put it together while he's driving. That
crazy.
Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Remember? He's like, "Oh, were you at the tower?" He's like, "No, I was watching from the ground." He's like, "Huh, weird." He's like,
that sounds like something
everywhere,
Spider-Man would say.
Everywhere that you were, Spider-Man was, because I thought that was the biggest kicker was Spider-Man's suddenly in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
So if you
Peter
were trying to
Parker's
figure
there,
out who he is, he's like, "Oh, who was
I
in
like
Washington
how
during that time?"
Peter wasn't smart enough to be like, yeah, I was there. Were you?
You must not have seen me. I was in the elevator.
He's just making like really half-ass excuses.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I didn't get to
But
see it.
it was cool because all of the things culminated to that scene in the car, like the fact that his best friend talked about, he knows he knows Spider-Man, and all that, and And he's like, oh, he was supposed to come to the party, but he never showed up. Like all those little things that when you're watching the movie, you're just like, oh, it's just a plot, or he just happens to be at the party, so he sees a thing. But it, like, if you could figure it out, then fucking Vulture can figure it out pretty quickly too. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with his turn as a villain as much. And I kind of ended up liking him at the end because he was like very likable character, like a very
super
likable, right?
It's Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's always gonna be. He's always gonna be super likable.
I don't know if I like the Vulture, if I like Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I just like Michael Keaton because he easily gave us one of the best MCU villains, aside from Loki and David Tennant as the Purple Man, stuff like that, where they killed it. But he's definitely one of the more recent actual movie ones, and not Netflix or where you get to expand 8 hours on these villains or whatever. But and even the side villains too, with the Shocker, that fight scene with the Shocker with David Woodbine, Fargo, he killed it in Fargo season 2, and then to hit it strong in this movie, and then obviously little tidbits like the Scorpions in there, played by the guy from
Woodbine.
Bo King, yeah.
Oh yeah, talk to me about Donald
Glover. So he's Miles Morales' uncle.
Okay.
In the
so has anyone explain who Miles Morales is?
Okay,
first,
Miles Morales is basically the
second most popular Spider-Man now.
Right. Because this was a big thing when they casted Donald Glover.
Sure.
Like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the inspiration. So basically, Donald Glover was some of the inspiration when they made the character Miles Morales.
Yeah.
And that was what's his name? I can't remember his name. He writes a lot of comics now. He wrote Spider-Man with them.
Brian Michael Bendis.
Brian Michael Bendis. Yeah. He created characters like Jessica Jones and stuff. So he created Miles Morales and inspired off of Donald Glover, and now Donald Glover is always attached to these like Spider-Man-like things.
Yeah.
So the character was based off of him, and then even in Spider-Man cartoons, he voices somebody in there.
Yeah, he's Miles Morales in the cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and then now he's tied to this, and he just so happens to be related to Miles Morales. So Miles Morales was created to be the ultimate version of Spider-Man. They created this whole other universe to modernize it. That's what the MCU movies were based off of. Sam Jackson, Nick Fury looked like Sam Jackson before they casted Sam Jackson in the Avengers. So, and he did that in the Ultimate Universe, and they wanted to shake it up with Spider-Man, so they ended up making an African-American Spider-Man, which was Miles Morales. So, yeah, he's Miles Morales' uncle in this one, which is pretty neat. And that scene was one of the most hilarious scenes in the movie, going into that deep interrogation mode. And that's what was cool, is that he was still learning his suit and stuff. And that was a good way to kind of set him back a little bit, rather than just saying, hey, he's super strong and can swing.
Well, let's talk about this suit. What do you guys think about Spider-Man's powers coming from a gadget that Tony Stark made?
That's a little bit weird, but
and also he doesn't know all of his powers yet, right? Like,
exactly. I mean, how many different web combinations did it say he had? Thousands, literally. He had
a kill mode.
Yeah, Tony Stark. I guess he's going to do that in Infinity War. He's going to go into kill mode.
Can he shoot something that is different, that kind of breaks the mold of Spider-Man? Is he doesn't physically shoot webs, right? Like, out of his
he never did.
Yeah,
arms,
and there was always cartridges, and that's what Sam Raimi. I'm sure there are versions of him in comic history that have shot webs
out of his butt.
Yeah, exactly. That he makes. But and then there are questions like that where like, how come it doesn't come out of his
butt like a real spider?
His PP.
Can you imagine him just swinging
out of his dick?
It's very different from this one, even though it's apparent and it's hinted at a little bit in this movie and in Civil War, is that this Spider-Man doesn't have spider sense.
I think it does, but it just doesn't. I don't think it's focusing, and I think this is them trying to distance themselves from the other one.
Because the other one is like Quicksilver,
and and then they all went slow motion.
Smash cut to his like goosebumps.
Yeah, how many times can you do slow motion if you're not Zack Snyder or Michael Bay? So
or Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, roasted.
So where is the because this is one of the big problems some people have with this movie, right? A lot of Spider-Man fans is like that it's
a suit.
Yeah, it's a computer. So if someone steals his suit,
voiced by who?
Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, nice.
Who was Paul Bettany's
the old Jarvis
Ang
from
Lee's Betty. What's
Ang Lee's Betty,
Betty Ross. I was gonna say Betty.
But
Brant.
like I don't know that I can understand why people would be mad at that though, because like in the comics, if anything, not that Spider-Man would lecture Stark, but he has the capacity to lecture Stark. Like he's smart enough to actually be his equal, even though he's not rich and shit like that.
Yeah.
in this movie, you obviously have a very different dynamic because Spider-Man was introduced by Stark into this world,
and he's a little boy.
Yeah, and so you have scenes where Spider-Man is talking down to, Stark is talking down to Spider-Man basically, like Iron Man is bitching out Spider-Man.
But you do get
Iron
that
Man makes a suit that talks to him.
But you get that scene at the end where he's like, "Hey, I don't need you, Tony Stark." Like, and then Tony's like, "Oh man, like you kind of outmatured me there a little bit." We're getting ready to sign him to a deal, get him a 2-year contract on the New York City Avengers.
He was offered a position in the Avengers and to stay at their compound next to Vision.
Yeah. Instead, he was forced to propose.
Yeah.
Boom.
Did you like that though? Like, or did you like that? All the all the new stuff that they added to Spider-Man, like just to. Like
I
all
don't
the
know.
suit stuff, or
it seems
he's not really his own hero in this case. Like,
yeah, it adds to
him.
Probably my only problem is that it is super Avengers-y, if not super Iron Man-y, and even there are parts of the movie where Iron Man steals a lot of the scene, like, and then
that
it's about him.
Scene where, damn it,
yeah,
like, that was man.
Like it's about him for a lot of parts, which is okay. Especially because it is his universe, like he gets to do whatever he wants,
and that's what
he's
was
in
cool.
charge.
And like coincidence that like, hey, you're gonna have a Spider-Man movie. Let's put the two people that started it here, Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. in this movie.
I guess it's cool.
You see, it's like super metaphoric too.
And I think it's just like this sort of weird like God presence that is Tony Stark. Because even the stakes of the movie ultimately weren't really human lives, just Tony Stark stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
like
but after that,
he's moving
how
and
many
you're saving
human
stuff.
lives after that,
and that he saved. Yeah. So it's I think that's just it's interesting because if we're looking at all of these new characters come up, how much of them are independent and how much of them are going to be under Tony Stark's rule. Like he hasn't shown up in any of the Netflix stuff yet, but
yeah, I know. But how long until
we'll see. Yeah, if he's got keep an eye on Spider-Man, I'm sure he's worrying about Daredevil and
like
Spider-Man
all the other
to,
stuff.
Like,
move over, Nick Fury.
Yeah,
Tony
Spider-Man
Stark's got this.
Yeah,
is probably the closest thing. Spider-Man would be the Marvel poster boy if they made him the bridge between the Netflix series and the.
They're in the same city.
Why not?
Different neighborhoods.
Well, and like
he's a street hero.
It's crazy because like the Punisher made his first appearance in the Spider-Man, and like that's a shot that you can imagine. And they even got themselves the interviews or like that landed. Tom Holland and John Bernthal worked together in their audition tapes.
Yeah, like he was a Punisher and he was Spider-Man.
Yeah, so and like that's something that I don't know that like once these movies start to get old and dull, they're gonna have no choice but to do something like that to shake
like
it up.
Daredevil versus Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's gonna be crazy because both of them have spider sense. I'm just kidding.
Or do they in this one?
Well, one of them.
For sure does.
For sure does, yeah. So, what else?
Crazy.
Let's talk about the score.
Michael Giacchino?
A lot of Spider-Man movies in the past have a very memorable score.
Yeah, Danny Elfman.
James Horner.
Rest
in peace. James Horner.
Oh, yeah.
And,
R.I.P.
Shit. Yeah.
Whoa, weird.
My mic just fell off.
Creepy.
Oh, my
James
God.
Horner
There's a
and,
Phantasma in
who
here.
else? Hans Zimmer, who did the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I guess.
Oh, my God. We're having some technical difficulty. Oh, no. Can you still hear me?
This score was made by Michael Giacchino, who did the score for Doctor Strange and the Star Trek movies, or the Abrams Star Trek movies. What did you guys think of the score?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think other than that, the intro for the Marvel Studios,
kind of weird, right?
It was
too memorable.
Yeah.
They also rely a lot on soundtrack.
They're just gonna hit us with that Ramones.
Not Marvel, not so much. I feel like Marvel really hashes out there.
Oh,
I like that. Like I like the music cues in the movie, like soundtrack cues.
We also had a little bit of some really cool montages you wouldn't normally see in a Marvel movie. I remember the one where he can't wait to get out of school, so it's the clock, and it's just an interesting way to show that like time passes because he keeps staring at the clock, and then it zooms out and it's somewhere else. No, he's not like
because they do it again. I guess.
Oh yeah.
The
The vault, right?
Yeah, and he's like, "What? It's been 15 minutes. God damn it!"
I think that's where where we see the comedic elements of the director and how he can actually craft something really funny in the small times, and it's important for a Spider-Man movie. Like it's
humor.
To me, he was the Deadpool before the Deadpool. Like if anybody
he's
was
a PG-13 Deadpool.
If anybody was gonna address the crowd like the way Deadpool does, it was gonna be Spider-Man before Deadpool took off. You know?
He has a lot of really funny. There's a I remember I think I talked about this on the podcast before. There's like a cover of because Aunt May marries Doc Ock in a thing.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Spider-Man has this thing that he says, and it's hilarious. I got to look up. But he has this funny one-liner in that, and that's what I always think of when I think of Spider-Man is like he's making these stupid puns and,
and
almost like
even-
an Adam West Batman.
Even the most recent Ultimate Spider-Man series, I was like, oh, for sure. Like
Drake Bell.
I'm an
Everyone
adult.
hates Drake Bell as Spider-Man. Anybody that I see on Twitter and stuff, they do not like the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon series,
Which is
I
so
love
weird.
it.
Yeah, I know, because I think it's so
actually
funny.
really
Yeah,
comedic,
it
like-
is really funny, and it's cool because they have people like Clark Gregg reprise their roles as like Phil Coulson in there. So
They
it
have
kind of
guest stars, guest characters like Hawkeye. Remember where he snaps the.
Oh my god, yeah, that's one of the funniest episodes. But even like that, I don't know. Like you see, I'm an adult and I'm a grown ass man watching a cartoon, but that's because the cartoon is genuinely funny, and I think that was the thing that held me over to this movie was like it kind of gave you hope that he was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And he does act like that too. Like he
Yeah.
nails the Spider-Man aspect. Like
For
even when
sure.
they shoot him with weapons.
Yeah,
Like they shoot
yeah,
him with
Josh
alien
Peck,
weapons. And then
what are
he
you
blows
doing not
up.
inviting Drake Bell to your wedding? How
All
dare
right.
you not invite?
I found the thing
Drake Bell?
that it's the preacher.
didn't?
He's
No, yeah,
looking.
that was a big controversy. Everybody was talking about.
Look it up, Scotty. Did
Yeah.
iCarly go?
Yeah,
there's
Megan.
The preacher was looking at the thing before Doc Ock marries Aunt May, and he says, "With this ring, I thee web." Oh man, classic.
Yeah. Boom, there you go. Classic Spider-Man.
Classic Spider-Man.
Excelsior.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think this movie was really, really fun. I can't say enough about it. Anything else you guys want to cover before we talk about our final thoughts?
Thoughts as in THOTS. Thoughts.
Yeah, that hoe over there's. Any
Yeah.
final that hoe over there's
Oh
for
man, is that
this
what
movie?
it stands for?
Let me see. Captain America's PSAs were probably really, really funny in this movie.
I know they even. I love how even this
And-
movie
and
being so meta at the end. Like,
Yeah.
hey, major
Patience,
weight.
yeah.
You know, and
It's
it
a
goes.
Ferris Bueller moment. Like
Yeah,
literally,
exactly.
like you're still here.
You're still here. Yeah, I know, which is crazy because Deadpool did that.
And then there's also Hannibal Burr is a hilarious
Yeah, well,
comedian, and the America videos like pun off of him and his comedy.
And even Martin Starr. Martin Starr's there too, and he was funny as the school teacher. So I mean, again, just top notch cast going around with what's his name, Woodbine and Keaton and the Childish Gambino and crazy Marisa Tomei and Zendaya and Martin Starr, and I mean, Jesus Christ, you can go on forever. Some people say they want J. Jonah Jameson in this one to be Ice Cube, which I can totally see because he's a loud mouth.
Yeah.
That
No Ice Cube? All right, cool. Not excited?
What else? And I think
I
it
get
was
Ice
JK
Cube. Oh, no,
JK
I'm going to
Simmons.
say something bad.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the
Stay away from the mic.
inclusion of Matt Gargan, who Spider-Man fans will know as the Scorpion, which is a very weird, lame villain in my opinion. I was a very
Shots fired.
I was
Yeah.
baffled that he was in this movie. It's
Yeah,
kinda
and
weird.
he's played by Matt Gargan.
Yeah, Matt Gargan is played by. Hold on, keep going.
He's from Better Call Saul as
Yeah, he plays
Nacho.
Nacho in that
Yeah,
one. I'm trying
which
to
he's
figure out
great
the
in that
name.
show. If you haven't caught up, what are you doing? You like good movies? Watch good shows. Game of Thrones. Better
Michael
Call
Mondo.
Saul.
Michael Mondo appears as Matt Gargan.
Yeah, the Scorpion, and you know what's funny is obviously I've
Sinister
said
Six. They're hinting at the Sinister
I've said
Six
it at
already.
5 times, and you know that's what disappointed me about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was that we were never going to get the Sinister Six. They built it up, and we're almost there, and then they shut it down. But now it looks like Marvel is still on that path.
Scorpion, Vulture.
Yeah, Scorpion, Vulture, and the Shocker, which are 3 villains. And me, I'm working at a comic book store. I was talking to my buddy Rob's been on the podcast couple. I think maybe one episode, 1 or 2. And we were talking about how they can introduce the next 3 villains. And so get this. This is my pitch to you. If they use any of this,
Here we go.
You're gonna hear it, and I'm
Time
gonna
to get
copyright
sued,
it,
baby.
Yeah, we're about to sue Marvel if they use this. But anyway, they should have a traveling circus come in, right? And you have the lion tamer, who's Kraven the Hunter, who's
Kraven
good with
the Hunter.
good with animals, right? You have the magician, who's Mysterio.
Ooh, Mysterio.
And then you have the sideshow freak, who's the chameleon.
Cool.
And you can have there is the other half of your Sinister Six.
Yeah.
And easily done, and it's
Real
all
quick,
wrapped
baby.
up and packed up, you know.
But the
Boom.
Nightcrawlers there. I'm gonna
Yeah, I know, for real. They're gonna have a crossover with the X-Men.
There's
X-Men.
there's a lot to be said about all the different elements of this movie, but I think ultimately it works because Tom Holland ties everything together.
Great performance from him.
How
also
old
Marvel's-
is he?
He's 21, actually.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I think Marvel needs to hurry up. Like, they need to start shooting either of these films back to back because he's gonna get his
because now he can legally
growth
drink,
spurt.
and you know it's
yeah,
gonna go.
yeah, it's all
It's gonna show
downhill.
on
Yeah,
Flick.
you
Yeah.
saw Shia LaBeouf, boom, roasted.
Ooh, man, Shia LaBeouf.
What do you think of Spider-Man: Homecoming?
Here we go. Final thoughts. Here's my final thought.
That whole
Good
there.
movie, great movie.
Yeah.
We may never know. No, Spider-Man: Homecoming, fantastic. I think this director does a good job with coming of age movies.
Yeah.
And I think this is what that
Clown.
is. Clown, coming of age for a clown.
Yeah. For an
But
ancient clown.
but this movie is funny when it needs to be. I think that even though it's heavily marveled out,
It is. It's super lighthearted, too.
ridiculously marveled out. It still fits well with everything that Spider-Man is, and Tom Holland is great, and he's going to do well in future movies. My favorite themes of this movie. So, number one, here we go. Number one, it's probably the dynamic between Iron Man and John
Favreau.
John Favreau
yeah.
and Spider-Man, because if our
Iron
theory
Man
is
and Marisa
correct,
Tomei.
then Spider-Man is going to be this huge part of the universe.
Going forward,
Well,
yeah.
if they use any of this too, that's sued again.
Sue them again. Sued again. Then he has to develop and become that leader if he's gonna be
Yeah,
the
Spider-Man,
leader.
we all
Copyright,
know,
trademark.
basically.
Yeah, and
That's
I think
how you
that's
do
what
that.
we're seeing is the beginning of a really amazing movie, and no, the beginning of a really amazing series of films. And I just can't wait for them. And I think one of the coolest things that they're doing is they're slowing it down. They're keeping it simple, which is really smart.
Keeping it very character-driven, too.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty good.
But
Because he doesn't join the Avengers at the end, guys.
yeah, but
He
think
does
about
not.
it. They're about to hit the gas pedal with him just meeting Thanos out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
in the next movie, and
Yeah.
that's what's mind blowing to me is that like it's so small scale and immediately to the hugest
Boom.
scale that they've ever
Yeah,
been
Infinity
in.
War is going to be a weird Marvel experiment because obviously that's the next Marvel movie out other than Thor Ragnarok.
They're shooting scenes with like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and
Yeah.
stuff that you never thought was possible. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're gonna see Star-Lord talking
It's
to
gonna be
Spider-Man,
huge.
and
It's probably one of the biggest movies ever made.
and
like,
then
literally.
to see these the producers and the directors say that Spider-Man 2, Homecoming 2 or whatever, if it's called Homecoming 2,
What?
after that,
place, like, minutes after.
minutes after the fourth Avengers movie, which
Wow.
is crazy because I meant to me, if I was a kid, I'd be fucking freaking out. I
Yeah.
just saw the other side of the universe, and then it wasn't there, and then it's there,
Yeah.
and then I met the incarnation of death, and
This
all
is
this crazy stuff.
I think this is Marvel's investment in like the next couple decades of movies, because think of how young Spider-Man is.
Until Sony screws it up, I feel like.
That's true, maybe.
Because Sony is making their own Marvel universe, and they're making it
The
very
Venom
confusing.
and, yeah.
They're making it very confusing because the Sony part of this deal, like obviously it's a deal between Marvel and Sony. The Sony part of this deal. Keeps
Welcome back to our
talking-
podcast, Royalties.
They keep talking off, or she
Cribs.
keeps talking. Amy Pascal, which is the Sony
She's
executive
putting her
producer.
foot in her mouth
Yeah,
and
she
in her
keeps
ass.
saying, like, it's not set in the same Venom isn't set in the same universe as the Marvel Spider-Man, but Tom Holland can appear in one of our future movies.
They
And you're
said
just, like, kind of like
they said it's
confusing
the
now.
same
people now.
thing on the way Marvel handles their TV shows, on how they never really cross over into the movies.
Yeah.
But there are hints to tell you that it ties it together.
Yeah.
But at the same, but then like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is New York big enough for
So
all
does that mean
50
the shows
people?
and Venom exist in the
yeah,
same
exactly.
universe?
Like, yeah. So like,
Jeez.
I don't know.
We'll
it's
see.
kinda
What
weird.
are your guys' final thoughts on this
Spider-Man,
Homecoming?
What are your final
Okay,
thoughts?
you want to go first? I go first.
You can go
You
first.
go first. I go first.
I'll go again.
All right. Yeah, I'll go twice. Anyways, yeah, it was cool, I guess. I'm just kidding. Oh man, I made him choke on his Red Bull. Red Bull is coming out his nose and ass. Yeah. Anyway,
It's giving me all kinds of
the
wings.
Yeah, it gives you wings, wings. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was good, and I read a review right before going into this movie. It was spoiler free, thank the Lord. But I agree most with it is that it sacrifices spectacle for heart, and that's the way I do characterize this movie. Because no matter how different things kind of were, no matter how drastically they changed things, I think it was true to Spider-Man. I guess at its core,
Yeah.
on what he is as a character,
Maybe they're
So-
retraining us to watch Spider-Man movies, because we were talking about how we wanted more and we wanted to see him in New York, and maybe on purpose they're like, we're just going to keep it in Queens, and then he takes a field trip.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure his suit can't do everything yet until later.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure that there's like a nanny for him during the movie.
It was funny because they talk about the training wheels protocol, and I think that's what this is for basically
us.
Spider-Man movies. Yeah, they put us on the training wheels.
Damn it!
Protocol.
But guess what, guys? I'm an Asian guy who can hack into it, and I'll show you guys the director's cut.
I have face blindness, so I didn't know you were Asian.
Daredevil has full blindness.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Can't hack into anything.
He has body blindness.
Yeah, I really like this movie. Actually, I was kind of going back and forth after I saw it because I kind of really didn't know what to think of. Because like
back and forth with who?
With myself, I guess. Like I didn't know
that means
what to.
It's a rubber tug.
I just didn't know what to think of this flick because like I came out kind of a little disappointed that there weren't enough like oomph moments. But like talking with you guys about this, there's more good than there is bad, or like at least more good than there is mediocre in this movie. And it's probably one of Marvel's best standalone flicks, like or reintroductory flicks. I guess
Standalone, but a giant Iron Man holding it up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Iron Man 3.5 maybe,
and it does have an epilogue to Iron Man 2. It's kind of weird, or like
they're
the
like
Iron Man franchise.
It came out okay. Yeah, him and Pepper got along.
Because like Spider-Man leaves in that very end scene, and then they kind of just focus on the entire.
I kind of dig that suit.
It's odd because Holland like is in every scene carrying the whole movie, and then they're like, "Go wait in the car."
Yeah.
Well, we do some Iron Man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we shoot some of Iron Man.
He offers him the Avenger spot and shows him like the Iron Spider / Insomniac Spider-Man game coming soon. Yeah, interesting.
So the movie was pretty good. It doesn't really lack, like I said earlier, and I'll stand by that. It doesn't lack the emotional punches that the previous Spider-Man movies did.
It doesn't, or it does?
It doesn't.
No one dies. Literally, no one. Uncle Ben doesn't even die in this movie.
There's also not a whole lot of adult
so
drama.
It does
lack. It lacks a little bit of drama, which would have, to me, it's just only because I'm used to seeing that cinematically for Spider-Man.
John, you're so full of drama. You have enough drama for everybody.
And I'm saying that as a kind of neutral fan of Spider-Man. I don't really care for Spider-Man all too much because he's kind of
ooh, ouch.
It's not really a character that I really gravitated towards.
To be fair, John doesn't like spiders.
Yeah, arachnophobia.
But as far as like what Andrew said earlier, just having him back in the MCU and then watching the performance and then having him nail that aspect very well.
Yeah.
And having him
he's a good Spider-Man.
Yeah, throw banter off between him and the Avengers and stuff like that, or just mentioning stuff that's in the Avengers world. It's really refreshing to see. So it's really cool. At the very end of the day, I guess we can say this is it's really awesome to see Spider-Man where he belongs, which is in this Marvel universe. So
easily. He's the most Spider-Man-like of all actors, even before this movie, simply because he's interacted with War Machine and because he's fought Giant Man and because he was on the same side as Black Panther, So that's what's crazy is that just being in the MCU puts him ahead of all the other Spider-Man combined.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
Your final thoughts?
Whoa, again.
One more time.
Here we go, guys. I think
say something nice.
Well, coming off of what Andrew said.
Nice.
I mean, it's a real Hercules kind of movie, right? He wants more, but initially I thought I didn't think about the fact that he did already fight with all these superheroes. So of course he wants to just go back to that.
I know, it's like this huge adrenaline rush where I'm in this homemade, and that's what.
And then he's like, "Hey, go stay in Queens forever."
That's what I thought was weird, and why they didn't start this movie off like that. They gave him the suit right away. You didn't really see him in his homemade suit often.
Yeah, until he had to.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, fighting with next to the Vision and dodging Scarlet Witch's blows and dodging Hawkeye's arrows. Again, it puts him miles ahead of anything that there's ever been in this character's history.
Super exciting. I think all of us are excited for whatever comes in the form of Spider-Man.
I hope it comes all over us.
All right, guys. You guys have anything to plug?
If you like Spider-Man, come pick up Spider-Man. Brian Michael Bendis.
Did you guys know it's based on a comic book?
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Spider-Man.
And guess what? We sell lots of those, yo. Heroes and Fantasies. Check it out.
How much to have you forge Stan Lee's signature on something?
Free.
Wow, guys, you can get a Stan Lee forged.
Real.
Yeah, no, it's real.
It's a real forged.
Yeah.
But you also have real Stan Lee style stuff, right? How much are those? Give us a ballpark. If you're going and you need to take out an auto loan, how much should you take out?
We have layaway, so whatever you want.
Oh, see that? $0.
Ooh, yeah, there you go.
John, what do you have to plug?
Not much. Just a few.
His butthole.
Go listen.
How many times have I said that on this podcast? Like quite a bit.
Go
right?
listen to all the Delphin Pod podcasts. Sitting Room, Rent to the Sequel. Go visit renttothesequel.com if you can write. If you want to write about movies or
Email
movie news,
us.
sequel
We'll go
news,
through
please.
these resumes.
We're becoming moguls. It's called vertical integration. Not only do we have a podcast,
if you're able to type in cursive, that would be fucking great.
Yeah, please email us. We'll obviously pay you back.
Sext
somehow.
us if you want. Sext us a resume.
John, don't promise things like that. That's
Pay you back in some
That's
form.
a verbal contract. Don't
We'll
be
pay you
making
back
those.
in many
I didn't
sexts.
say in money or anything. I'm just saying like we'll hang out with you or
Now,
something.
now you said the word money, and someone can just cut
You're
that
like
in.
hanging out. What the hell is going on with you?
We're not
Did
gonna
you
hang
discuss
out.
this with my agent?
Anyway,
I'm not showing up anywhere.
Yeah, please let us know if you. In all seriousness, please let us know if you do want to.
Yeah.
write for
Being
us. That's
serious.
being awesome,
Guys, the audience is huge. You're gonna be famous.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to the Sticker Fridge Network podcasts, the Fan Film Season 2, which is out right now. Director Showdown Season 1 is up.
How many things do you have to plug? My God.
And another hour.
And Season 2 will be coming pretty soon. And yeah, just keep listening, guys.
Boom.
I gonna ditto that. Go to revengesequel.com and then check out the YouTube because I think all these are going on YouTube.com now. But
the YouTube.
I just want to say a special thank you to everyone who bought a Delphin Pod shirt. We almost doubled our goal.
Yay, yay, as Ice Cube used to say.
Oh man, stop
Right?
bringing up Ice Cube because I want to say something.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for that. Again, revengesequel.com. Almost our 100th episode. We'll have something very special.
Very special plan.
Very special.
Very.
Very special.
If we keep saying very special,
You'll believe it.
they'll believe it. It'll become true. If we think real hard.
It's got creepy real quick. Anyway, yeah.
John, you
That's
ruined
awesome.
it. We
All
could have
right.
went out on that.
Yeah, we can still.
You
know,
bitch.
I'm
Later,
not gonna.
guys.
Bye.